Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast and the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now, on to this week's episode.
Hello, and welcome back to the show. I hope you've had a fantastic week, and our topic this week is a guide for divorced dads on shedding the quote-unquote nice guy persona. If you are anything like I was, then this was potentially or is one of the main reasons why your marriage has met its demise. The nice guy persona, or basically codependency, is something that comes up often in our group meetings, but was one of the main topics that we talked about yesterday in our group meeting. Before we get going, though, I wanted to welcome some new guys to the Divorced Advocate community. Those are Ben, Ryan, Andy, and Eric. Welcome. If you're not a member of the Divorced Advocate community yet, check out the website at thedivorcedadvocate.com. There are resources for everybody from free to paid. There's the divorce quiz, which is an awesome opportunity to gauge where you're at in your divorce compared to others who have gone through it, get some immediate results and some help. So check that out, become a member, get involved, get the help that you deserve going through this difficult and challenging time. So a guide for divorced dads on shedding the nice guy persona. And as you know, divorce can and is a tumultuous journey, especially for us fathers who were once codependent in their marriages. And the aftermath oftentimes leaves us grappling with a sense of identity, particularly if we were accustomed to being that quote-unquote nice guy who prioritized their partner's needs over their own, or was looking to get their needs met by trying to do more for others and giving more of yourself. And so however, like you've heard me say many, many times, if you listen to more than one episode, that post-divorce life offers us an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. And so this is a chance for us to break free from old patterns and embrace a healthier, more empowered way of living. And so we're going to talk about 10 ways in this guide where we'll explore how divorced dads can stop being that quote-unquote nice guy and cultivate a life filled with boundaries, self-respect, and self-esteem. But before we get going on those 10 ways, first, I want to describe and help you to understand what the quote-unquote nice guy syndrome is. In many cases, the nice guy syndrome stems from a fear of conflict and rejection. And so, dads, you often prioritize pleasing others to gain approval and avoid confrontation, even at the expense of our own well-being. And while appearing kind and accommodating on surface, what happens then is we may harbor resentment and struggle with asserting our needs and our desires. So what happens is we overgive in an attempt to get our needs met and trying to get the love that we want by giving too much of ourselves and not setting boundaries. And then eventually, because we don't set those boundaries, we aren't true to ourselves, then resentment builds up. And that's when sometimes there's a manifestation of anger. Sometimes there's a manifestation of resentment. Sometimes there's just a manifestation of you've seen the guy, or you may be the guy that just rolls over and gets demeaned and treated really poorly. So there's many different results, and they can vary and change at times, or they can present all at the same time sometimes. So let's talk about the first way in which we can address this, and that is recognizing your worth. This journey to shedding the nice guy persona begins with recognizing your inherent worth as an individual and understanding that your needs, desires, and feelings are valid and deserving of attention. So you need to embrace the belief that you are worthy of love, respect, and fulfillment, both within yourself and in your relationship with others. Now, oftentimes the genesis of that disbelief is potentially a childhood trauma or some childhood experience that you went through, or early adult life experience that you went through, that helped, that formed that thought process that you are not worthy. So going through some work with a therapist or a coach, or even just self-reflection and understanding through journaling or some of the other strategies we've talked about before, in understanding where that is coming from. First, identifying whether or not this is something that is true for you, which is pretty common with the nice guys, and then finding the source of what that is, and then working towards changing that mindset around that is critical. The second is establishing healthy boundaries. Setting boundaries is absolutely essential for reclaiming your autonomy and your self-respect. And what you need to do is you need to clearly define what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior in relationships and so that's one thing, is defining what that is. The other part, which is sometimes a little bit more challenging, especially if we're not versed in getting good at this, is communicating these boundaries assertively, whether it's establishing limits on your time or your emotional availability or your personal space. Prioritizing your needs sends a powerful message about your self-worth. So it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to say no. That can sometimes be a full sentence, no, period. That was something that was very challenging for me for a long time, was saying no to things. But setting those boundaries is incredibly important, and communicating those boundaries. So that looks like that if it's something that you're not comfortable with, making sure to say, well, I am not comfortable with this, not doing it in a mean or obnoxious way, but just saying that you're not comfortable with that, but you would like to talk about ways that could be an improvement to that or something different. And that can be a myriad of different circumstances. Number 3 is practice assertiveness. And this kind of goes along with communicating these boundaries. And so the challenge with communicating the boundaries and practicing assertiveness is that nice guys often don't want to be in conflict, or they don't want to be assertive and know that conflict is coming up. So they'll just hide from it. So assertiveness is a key skill for shedding the nice guy persona and expressing your needs confidently and respectfully. So instead of avoiding conflict or acquiescing to others' demands, learn to assert yourself in a calm and assertive manner. Again, it's not being a dick. It could just be, no, I'm not comfortable with that. Practicing no when necessary and expressing your thoughts and feelings openly without fear of judgment or rejection. Here's the thing, fellas. If somebody truly and unconditionally loves you, they are going to be kind and respectful to your feelings. Now, when you're communicating those feelings, if they're not being kind and respectful to you about your feelings or demeaning those feelings, then you need to assess your relationship and the time that you're spending with that person. Because no matter what, we deserve to have our feelings heard, and that doesn't mean that we can't. And we need to be able to communicate those and have somebody listen to those. So practice the assertiveness in getting past that hurdle of wanting to hide from any conflict and have those tough conversations. Sometimes you can work with one of the great things is with coaching or therapists, you can work through this, or if you don't have the means for that, practice with a friend and work on and practice those conversations and approaches to having those conversations up front and beforehand, very similar to if you would be doing a presentation or doing anything for your work or having conversations like that. Here's the thing you're going to find about the nice guy syndrome is that this is not just part of your romantic relationships. When you have the aha and you figure out that you're a nice guy, or codependency. Nice guy is basically just a different term for being codependent. You're going to see that it is prevalent across your life in other relationships, like your work relationships, your relationships with your children, etc. So learning to be assertive and setting those boundaries is incredibly important. So the sooner you start to work on those things, the better. Now, the next one is prioritizing self-care. You might notice something in all of the, I don't want to say all of the podcast recordings, but in most everything that we talk about, steps going through divorce and working through our divorce and our life 2.0, is self-care is a huge one. All of the time, you hear me say all the time, and pretty much that's always one of them, because we just let that go by the wayside oftentimes. So investing in self-care is essential for nurturing your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being in life. So make time for activities that replenish your energy and bring you joy, whether it's exercising, meditating, pursuing hobbies, or spending quality time with loved ones. And remember that self-care is not selfish. It's a vital component of maintaining a healthy and balanced life. And when you're doing it, it actually sets the tone. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, about just modeling for your children. It shows your children that they also have to have self-care in their life. So if you're modeling self-care, they're going to learn. They learn from watching us. So you want them to have self-care. You want them to take care of themselves. You don't want them to end up being codependent or be the nice guy. So make sure to do this. It's not a selfish thing. The next one, number 5, is challenging negative beliefs. Shedding the nice guy persona involves challenging negative beliefs and self-limiting thoughts that undermine your self-esteem. So what we need to do is, like I said, just alluded to a little bit earlier, is replacing those self-critical thoughts. So first, it's recognizing those thoughts, that self-worth that we talked about, number 1, or those thoughts about lack of self-worth. We need to replace those self-critical thoughts with affirmations that reinforce your worth and your capabilities, cultivating a mindset of self-compassion and kindness towards yourself, recognizing that you are deserving of love and acceptance just as you are. Now, this might be difficult and challenging, particularly if you are going through grief right now, through the breakup and through the divorce and then post-divorce, and there's so many emotions that go on and come up through that grief process. So challenging those negative beliefs can be an ongoing, minute by minute, literally challenge all of the time. But make sure to identify them, see them, recognize that self-worth, and then do something to help yourself replace those self-critical thoughts. And that can be affirmation, it could be journaling, it can be listening to positive things and positive music, reading positive things. Fill your mind and your environment with things that are going to help you to work through those negative beliefs.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Jude with a quick reminder about the Divorced Advocate Foundation for Fathers, which is our nonprofit that helps dads through divorce with legal education, free or reduced cost coaching, and mental health resources. If you own a business or know someone who does, there's an easy way to help by connecting credit card processing through our partner program. Part of the fees go straight to the foundation with no added cost to the business, and 98% of businesses are actually able to save money on their processing fees. It's a win-win. So if you know a business that accepts credit cards, get them in touch with me by sending a warm introduction email to jude@thedivorcedadvocate.com, or give me a call directly at 720-255-1021.
Number 6, embrace vulnerability. Now, this is a big one. By embracing vulnerability is essential for authentic connections and emotional intimacy. Allow yourself to be open and honest about your thoughts, feelings, and experiences, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Vulnerability fosters deeper connections with others and allows you to authentically express yourself without fear of judgment or rejection. And as nice guys, many times what happens is we do not share how we are feeling about things, or we don't, by not setting those boundaries, we just push things down and hope that things are going to get better. And that is just an inauthentic way in which to live your life, as opposed to talking about how something might be impacting you and how you're feeling about things, and sharing those and being open about them. Again, this is not likely, and oftentimes these codependencies, this nice guy syndrome that comes up, is not your fault. It's something that you have learned through your childhood, in helping to try to cope with maybe a challenging circumstance or a difficult and traumatic childhood. But it doesn't have to be a difficult and traumatic childhood. It could just be a coping mechanism that you utilized in order to get through your childhood that is now not serving you in your adult life. So then what that leads to is inauthenticity in what you're feeling. And so working on, again, like I was talking about earlier, it's uncomfortable then for us to be able to say no, or to say, hey, this situation or what you said is making me feel uncomfortable, or it hurt me, or whatever your feelings are. And so starting to work on trying to do that is incredibly, incredibly helpful, because then that helps you to be vulnerable. It helps you to be open. And again, this is another thing, modeling for kids, that we want them to be open. We want them to be vulnerable. We want them to come to us. But if we're not doing that, they see that. They will see that in your interactions with your spouse or your soon-to-be ex or your ex, and they're going to mimic some of that. So the sooner that you recognize it in yourself and you figure it out, and you make strides to getting past that discomfort and starting to be vulnerable and authentic, then the better. Number 7 is take ownership of your happiness. Shedding the nice guy persona means taking ownership of your happiness and fulfillment, instead of relying on others for validation or approval. Cultivate a sense of self-reliance and independence. Pursue activities and goals that bring you joy and satisfaction, independent of external validation or recognition. This is what I talked about earlier, which is that as a nice guy, we're looking for the love that we want by doing or maybe overgiving to somebody else and getting that validation, which then becomes sometimes with people who will overtake and just keep taking and taking and taking and not reciprocating. Then we get upset and we get hurt. So we don't need to do that. We can take ownership ourselves of our happiness. We don't need to do something for somebody in order to get it back. And I would say one of the biggest things for me in taking ownership of my happiness was developing my spiritual life and helping me to know and understand my place in my spiritual life and in my spiritual world and my relationship with God. That helped me feel comfortable in knowing that I am loved no matter what. And so that was for me, but that for you, that could be that, but it could be anything. It could be an activity or a goal. Like I said, anything that brings you joy and satisfaction, but that gives you validation independent of an external recognition. So just make sure that you keep that in mind, that you're not doing it for an external validation. You're doing it in order to make yourself feel good, to have self-reliance, to be independent, to have that satisfaction, to be joyful, and not trying to garner that from somewhere else or somebody else. Number 8 is seek support. And you hear, again, this one with the self-care is probably one that hits on everything all the time. On all of the advice that I give is make sure to seek support. It can be from family, it can be from friends, therapists. They can all provide valuable insight and guidance as you navigate the journey of shedding your nice guy persona. But make sure to surround yourself with supportive individuals. That's critical. And make sure that they encourage you to grow and develop. And don't hesitate to reach out for help when needed. Remember that you don't have to face this journey alone. And as guys, oftentimes we want to just isolate. We want to close the blinds and stay away and not be vulnerable and not be open about struggling or feeling grief or sharing our feelings or being codependent or whatever it might be. I can tell you one of the greatest things that I ever did was getting involved with Codependence Anonymous, which is a free organization. It's a 12-step program. And I remember the first time walking in there, literally sitting and listening to people talk and saying to myself, oh my gosh, I swear these people are listening to the thoughts in my mind because I thought I was crazy and they're saying all the stuff that's going on in my mind. So that was a huge freeing and relief to me, knowing that there were other people going through this. And then by working through the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous, it helped me to recognize a lot of these things that were happening, a lot of the dynamics in my life and in my relationships, and then take the steps towards healing and working on those. But had I not ever reached out and went to that first meeting, which is incredibly difficult, it was very uncomfortable and uncertain, I would have never gotten that help. And that was really a transformative experience. Now, it might not be a 12-step for you. Maybe it's a church group or a Bible study, or maybe it's just friends. Maybe it's a group meeting. Maybe it's a men's group. Who knows what it might be for you, but make sure to seek that support. It is absolutely critical. You don't need to go through this challenging time all by yourself, and you should not. And we really can't. We really need to seek support and get the help that we deserve. The next one, number 9, is practice self-compassion. And self-compassion is essential for overcoming perfectionism and self-criticism. I was a perfectionist. I still fight it oftentimes, but treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend facing a similar challenge. Oftentimes, many of us nice guys are much more critical of ourselves than anybody else could possibly be. Critical of us, and by making sure to acknowledge your efforts and progress, even if they're small, and forgive yourself for any setbacks along the way. Remember that growth takes time and patience. And so there's a saying that I like, which is really important, which is just try to be a little bit better today than you were yesterday, and then tomorrow be a little bit better than you were today. So don't measure yourself at like working from a goal or the end goal. Just be present in where you're at now. Try to be a little bit better now, and then practice some of that self-compassion. And remember, it just takes a little bit of time. It takes thought. It takes effort, but just a little. And by doing that slowly, a little bit every single day, then after a certain period of time, then that builds up and builds up. And that's particularly true with that self-compassion. So if you start hearing those negative beliefs in your head, or you're not recognizing your self-worth, like I talked about, or you haven't set boundaries, or you did it wrong, you weren't being assertive or practicing the self-care, like all the ones that I just talked about, be compassionate with yourself, just knowing that, hey, I even recognized the fact that I wasn't doing this as well as I could have today. That is even a step today better than you were yesterday. So just have that self-compassion, take baby steps, and surround yourself with other guys, frankly, too, that can help you to do that. Because if we are alone and we don't have somebody to bounce this off with, and I see this now that I've embraced, and I've just got a phenomenal group of men that are around me that they'll say, hey, look, man, you've gone from here to there, and it's pretty amazing. And I watch you and I'm pretty amazed. And then I do the same thing with many of the men that I have around me, going, wow, man, that's pretty amazing, because you were here just not long ago, and now you're here. And every time we have these conversations, it's validation. And we're like, oh yeah, wow, I didn't even think about it, because we get caught up in our lives, excuse me, and then where we're at, and we don't really see the forest for the trees, if you will. So make sure to practice that self-compassion. Lastly, number 10, embrace authenticity. Above all, shedding the nice guy persona involves embracing your authentic self and living in alignment with your values and beliefs. Allow yourself to be genuine and true to who you are rather than conforming to others' expectations or seeking approval at any cost. Embracing authenticity fosters genuine connections and fulfillment in all areas of your life. One of the guys on the group call yesterday said he's a little ways down the line from his divorce, and he's getting ready to start dating again. And he said, he said, I'm a pretty good guy. I got my life pretty much together. And I try, and he listed just some great things about himself. And he said, I just want to find somebody, excuse me. I just want to find somebody that's going to love me for who I am. And so that's really what we are all looking for, is just trying to find somebody that will love us for who we are. But we can't do that. We can't find that person if we're not authentic about who we are. So embracing that authenticity is absolutely just unbelievably important to get rid of that nice guy persona. So it doesn't mean that you don't stop being a nice person. It just means that you stop overgiving or trying to give in order to get the love that you want. You're just authentically who you are. Part of that is going back, if you haven't already, and understanding and learning or developing what your values and your beliefs are. And if you need a book on that, Dr. Sean Smith's Tactical Guide to Women is a great one. The first half of that book is talking about making sure you know what your values and your beliefs are. Because if you don't, it's impossible for you to be authentic. And then you're just kind of like going with the flow, or, floating around in the wind. So in order to become authentic, which then leads to being able to lead as a male in your relationships and your family, et cetera, you have to know what your values and your beliefs are. So maybe I should have put that. It's a good one to wrap up on number 10, but maybe I should have put that up earlier in the first part of this, because it's critical to you shedding that nice guy persona. So breaking free from the nice guy persona is a transformative journey. And really it requires courage, self-awareness, and commitment. Those things: courage, self-awareness, and commitment. And by embracing the boundaries, self-respect, and self-esteem, we can create a life that honors our individuality and empowers us to thrive post-divorce. You have a life 2.0 coming here post-divorce. So make sure to embrace that. And not only does this benefit your own well-being, but it's also going to set a positive example, like I said, for your children, laying the foundation for healthy relationships and personal growth. So to all you divorced dads, it's time to step into your authenticity and embrace this incredible journey of self-discovery. Fellas, I sincerely appreciate you listening today. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have, please share it far and wide. Give us a star rating. Give us some comments. Put it on social media as well. And share this with another dad that can get the divorce support that he deserves. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic week, and God bless.
To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.